Okay, looks like most of the people have entered the room at this point. We are going to get started. I'm Miriam McNabb, editor at dronelife.com, and I am honored to be moderating this inaugural session of the Anra Huddle, a new webinar series covering the biggest issues in autonomous aircraft, robotics, and the software systems that power them. This webinar will be recorded, and we will open the session for questions from the audience if time permits during the last 15 minutes. Please submit any questions using the Hopin Q&A icon in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and we will answer as many as we have time for. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the drone program at the nation's largest state public power organization, the New York Power Authority, or NYPA. We'll be looking at their drone program from all sides. So our panelists are NYPA's UAS program manager, Peter Kalatzidis, here to discuss the software environment that facilitates the program. We have ANRA's Chief Strategy Officer, Brent Calvin. And to talk about the hardware issues, we're joined by Skydio's Utilities Solutions Specialist, Corey Hitchcock. Thank you all for being here, and thank you everyone in the audience for joining us today. So Peter, I'd like to start with you and get right into it. You are an Air Force veteran. You've been flying uncrewed aircraft since you were 8 years old. You've developed drone programs and solutions all around the world, commercial, military, government. Tell us what the goals of NYPA's drone program are.
Well, so to start off, I am a nerd, and I'm proud of it.
We like nerds.
Our
We like nerds.
our goal here at the New York Power Authority is to do work more efficiently, having our people capture the data and owning the data. This is contrary to what other organizations are doing across the country. And what we're trying to do is to not replace the person, but limit how many times our climbers have to climb the tower, limit how many times people have to dangle offside a bridge to look at it, risk the machine, not the person. And that's been the overall driving force behind safety.
Okay, so absolutely, a great value proposition there is simple, safety, gravity works. Anytime you can send up the machine instead of the person, you're better off. We'll get more into the data later on. Let's move into kind of the software environment that's supporting those goals. So Brent, you're a Navy veteran, licensed commercial pilot, remote pilot with ANRA. You're serving in research groups and standards boards all over the world. How is ANRA as a software provider working with NYPA to help them meet those goals of doing more with drones instead of, having to have human resources up, as he said, hanging off the side of a bridge?
Well, Peter said it nicely. It's really, how do we make our customer more efficient? And if possible, how do we make those operations safer? And so it used to be a spreadsheet managed assets and resources and enterprises. And there's still a lot of people that do that. And that works fine. But when you want to scale those operations, you want to optimize the efficiencies, you want to have your drone operations do more for you, then it starts to become an opportunity to develop software that we can put into the hands of someone like Peter, who manages a program to manage all of his assets, all of his resources, pilots, batteries, drones, and so forth, and then allow the workflow to be able to assign missions to those individuals to go out into the field and deploy those same technologies using our platform in a way that wasn't really possible a couple of years ago. But with the advent of our software being able to understand the airspace, how to manage drones within that airspace, and then start to bring in other pieces of the New York Power Authority, NYPA, as they say, the NYPA legacy systems into that same platform, then it really starts to become really interesting for Peter and other enterprises that want to be able to connect with these new technologies, with existing platforms, and maybe enhance traditional methods, or maybe even think of new methods of obtaining that same data. So we've been very happy working with Peter and NYPA.
So it's really about sort of taking it from this idea of somebody's going to go out and fly a drone to the nitty gritty of where, when, how, with what equipment, and managing that whole fleet. So we'll dive into that more. Now I want to talk about the hardware because, we've got hardware working here. Corey, I've had the opportunity to hear you speak at drone industry events many times. Before joining Skydio, you were with Southern Co. You're an expert in power and energy inspection. Actually, according to the Nuclear Power Authority, first guy to inspect a working nuclear reactor. Very cool. Very cool with the drone. And now at Skydio, you're helping develop those autonomy and dock solutions designed to help utilities kind of realize their goals and their ROI. So let's talk a little bit about why sort of autonomous hardware is important in this context when you've got workers who need to go out and perform routine inspections, wide variety of applications in NIPA and other big power companies. So talk a little bit about how the hardware choice sort of influences those operations.
Yeah, so I think the main thing that kind of leans towards the whole autonomy solution inside the power system or utility inspections or utility operations is the fact that you're operating a drone around energized conductors up to 765 kV. And you're operating those drones in very confined spaces at times, and the ability for the subject matter expert to be the one using that drone as a tool in the toolbox, just to see higher, farther, gain a little bit of additional situational awareness, provides a lot of value. And having that autonomy and the autonomous collision avoidance and those other behaviors that we have allow the operator, the SME operator, non-aviator, to become an aviator very quickly, and to allow them to be trained to operate the equipment very quickly and very efficiently.
So you're taking an inspector who's a subject matter expert and allowing them to fly the drone rather than having to go the other way around, hire a licensed pilot and teach them the subject matter.
Correct. Yes.
So,
Because you can't push 20 years of experience into a person overnight. You just can't. You gain that experience from that time. So super valuable.
Peter, what does the NIPA fleet look like? How many pieces of hardware are you dealing with? How many pilots are you sending out? How many missions are you performing in general?
So right now we are up to about 57 days of flight last month alone.
Wow.
We have a total of 63 drones. Half of them are on the panel here today. And the other one's DJI, but for that system, it really requires a person. When we start dealing with Skyduo, it's amazing because the automation in it, anyone can operate it. And that's been a really big usage. One of our oldest pilots, he's 72 years old, and he flies the system perfectly. The number of pilots we have right now, we're up to 63 with another 20 in the queue. We have exploded in that realm over the past 19 months since I've joined the NIPA.
So that is amazing. That's a really significant program you have running here. And I'm curious about when you say you have 20 more in the queue, is that sort of internal resources who indicate that they're interested?
So what we do differently here is I broke it up into there are some type of drone missions that we as an organization shouldn't even attempt. A lot of organizations struggle with LiDAR. When they say we're going to start up a drone program, they're like, we're going LiDAR. And then they realize they need to have a classifier on schedule, and you have to fly a particular way. And the longer you don't fly the system, the operator becomes rusty. I ignored all that and I said, we're doing visual inspections. as our flights increase, that we'll do more and more comparable missions. But right now, it's get your 107. We'll teach you how to fly. I usually tell them to go get one of Corey's drones, and then they can go out and do their missions after the training. But right now, it takes about 2 months for the Part 107, and then a month of flight training before they can do a NIPA mission.
Great. And
Does that
so
make
is that
sense?
an internal training system that you're working with? Okay, so you've
Yes, ma'am.
developed your own training system. Excellent. Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. Um, really an efficacious way to get started with a drone program. You're absolutely right. I mean, we have all in this industry heard horror stories about the $100,000 worth of hardware that stays in the closet. So let's talk about kind of the benefits that you get just from the visual inspection. So the kind of most immediate mission that you can do. And then I want to bring in Brent and Corey and talk about kind of how this works on a day-to-day basis, how the drone works, how the software works managing those missions. But what are the benefits that you're realizing from just doing those visual inspections by drone?
So typically what would happen is someone would have to climb up the tower or use their binoculars to see. I'm going to go with the transmission inspection since we're transmission. That is broken. And then they write up a work order. Now what we can do is say, that is broken. Here's the photo of it breaking, or here it is over time degrading. So having that data set than just a written piece of paper saying it's broken and it lost a cotter pin, well, you can start watching how much is that cotter pin rusting or loosening over time. You can actually watch how much of that hole is elongating over time. And that data set will be invaluable when you can say, this is a brand new dead end shackle. And then every year there's the hole elongating just a little bit more. That's when the data becomes really valuable. 1, 2, 100 photos, not very valuable. When you have 1,000, a terabyte of just shackles wearing over time, that's when we'll see the real money and the real savings start to add up.
So that's when you kind of can go into a predictive maintenance model where you're saying, instead of it breaks and we go out and fix it, we're fixing it right before it breaks. So, and keeping those systems working. So, I'm going to start with Corey now. So Corey, when somebody takes out a Skydio drone and says, okay, I need to inspect this asset, whatever that asset is, how is this pilot interacting with the drone? How's this working? Just give us sort of a basic overview so that people can really get an idea of how the operation works a little differently than, having to do everything with sticks.
Well, sure. So Skydio has the ability, as most people know, to operate aircraft manually. So that's the kind of the traditional method. What sets Skydio apart from other manual drones is the ability for the visual positioning system to allow us to get very close to things, and the absence of a magnetometer or electronic compass allows Skydio aircraft to operate very closely to transmission voltages or high EMI fields. In the past, a drone with a magnetometer could get about 20 feet from a conductor before it started showing errors and non-nominal behaviors as far as handling goes. And then with ours, you can get avoid contact. You can get as close as 4 inches and do that safely and reliably. The other way Skydio drones are used, and this kind of provides value in the more predictive maintenance side, is the dock-based solution that operates from imagine a substation or some other type of asset you're trying to inspect. But we'll talk specifically about substations because the dock-based drone could be used to replace that monthly counter reading and gas gauge reading inspection. That dock-based drone could also be used for a security patrol. That dock-based drone could also respond to event-based like event-based things. So if you had like a differential in a station or some other issue inside the station, the drone could have a pre-programmed flight plan and could operate and fly around autonomously. Where you get into the predictive maintenance side is when you repeatedly, at a more frequent cadence, are able to capture inspection data without having to roll a truck or send a person out there or get a clearance to get close to it. You're able to kind of trend, like Peter was talking about with the dead end clamps. You're able to trend failures or trend the degradation of your assets and understand, when it's about to fail before it fails, so that you can, keep those customers happy and energized, and switch out the defective equipment and be able to replace that without having an outage, directly impacting your SAIDI and SAFE numbers. The higher frequency of inspection and impacts the frequency of the outages, and the duration of the outages are cut down because you're able to identify problem equipment and swap that out without having customers out.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about the dock later on, because I think that's a really significant development for infrastructure organizations of many types. But when you say you can get 4 inches away, so in my world, all about the data, right? Close means accurate and precise, and so you're getting sort of a very good visual representation of what's happening. Pilot flies the mission. What happens to the data?
The data then can be ingested into the Skydio cloud, and from the Skydio cloud, we have API integrations with different partners to allow that data to be pushed over to their system. Kind of, if you're in the field doing it manually, it can be done at the end of the day. If it's a dock-based solution, it'd be automatic.
Okay. And so, Brent, when we're talking about these kind of daily missions, 50 some missions a month, and that many pilots and that many drones, how is the mission manager system facilitating this on a daily basis? Peter's going to say, these guys need to go here. We have to make sure we have the appropriate hardware, the appropriate batteries. Everybody needs to have the appropriate permissions. How does this all work? Sorry, Brent,
You're
can't
muted.
hear you. You are muted. There we go. There we go. We gotcha.
So we view Mission Manager as an enabler, and we want to put it in the hands of the customer that has not only visual line of sight operations for data collection, but even beyond that, to be able to scale to more complex operations. And so we want to provide all the tools that are necessary for an enterprise to go do their job. And so what I mean by that, and I'll use NIPA as an example on how we enable that data capture or that inspection or monitoring of assets, whatever that might be, is we are also ANRA. We're a low altitude authorized notification capability LANC provider for the FAA. And so we, in the app for Mission Manager, you can choose your adventure when you're a pilot for NIPA. When you go out into the field, not only can you do all the Mission Manager work, plan your mission, fly your mission, but you can also, while using the same app, turn and open up LANC and get an approval if necessary. So that helps enable that pilot to do their job. Another example is GIS data. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of physical infrastructure that NIPA has to take a look at, monitor, inspect. And so they have all this infrastructure mapped through Esri tools and other GIS type tools that we're able to bring into the Mission Manager application and display that with metadata, so you can see not only the visualization of that data in the app, but also some necessary information, whether it's an identification tag or whatever else is associated with that piece of equipment. And it's laid out across a satellite image or a street view image and so forth. So the operator can then plan their mission accordingly, or go to that specific site, make sure they're looking at the right asset. Another example is we try to build in as much flexibility and agility for the mission manager client. In this case, for NIPA, they have an M300 from DJI. They wanted some camera control capability. So we're able to do some of that work and allow them to manipulate the camera for data capture. And we also want to allow NIPA to use as many types of varieties of drones as they want to, include Skydio, and being able to use their systems. But most fleets have more than just one type of hardware. So we want to give them the flexibility at NIPA to be able to fly multiple hardware systems. And with our partner Skydio, knowing that they're important to NIPA, we're working with them on integrating the Skydio telemetry into our mission manager system. So in one application, you can see the telemetry from live drone operations. You know where you are in the world virtually because all the data is integrated. And so when you want to go flying in airspace, you understand airspace classifications because we're pulling in that data. It's where you can fly, where you're not supposed to fly. And one final point on how we enable NIPA is existing systems with organizations as large as NIPA. It's most likely that there's already a tool that they're using for enterprise management. Maximo is a very popular tool that's an IBM product for enterprise software and asset management, which across the enterprise they use for various reasons. And so being able to integrate a tool like Maximo or something like a Maximo for existing enterprises means they don't have to shift things that have been in place for years and maybe countless people are using for different reasons. We're able to tap into that and figure out a way to bring the data that we need into this platform so that the drone operators can do their job more efficiently.
And Peter, I want to kind of go back to you because that's a ton of data management there, a ton of ways to make that data more usable, more valuable. But also, I would think that there's elements of simple administration where you've got to be able to say at the end of the month, this is what we did, this is what we spent, this is what this is the condition of my hardware, this is what I need, and so forth. So talk about sort of, because you got sort of day-to-day nitty-gritty here of managing a fleet.
So managing where the pilots go is one thing, but me knowing, is this a transmission-based inspection? Does this fall under transmission for maybe some sort of reimbursements from federal agencies and stuff? That's important. So I need to be able to prove that our program is 55% of the time flying transmission line inspections. We're doing construction work. These are benefits that are being passed on to our clients, and we need to compute what is this value. That has been the biggest hindrance within my program. And now with Anra here, I can actually go in there and break down what type of mission it was. Was it an inspection base? Was it construction? Was it survey grade? Are we monitoring our waterways? So having the ability to go down and see to how often are we charging the battery? How long is that battery being flown for? Then we're charging. Can monitor the battery life itself. Now, sometimes we go too deep down the rabbit hole, but this is how you get a better understanding of what your costs are. My bosses don't really want to know these numbers, but me as a program manager, I need to know these numbers because batteries need to be replaced. Corey would love to keep sending me endless supply of batteries, but sooner or later that door is going to close on me. Mm-hmm. Having that idea of what to expect, I can plan out better. And that's what Anra has really been helping out with.
Perfect.
Mary, if I could just jump onto that, what Peter said, it's also something that we look at just an enterprise application, but I'm sure Peter will get to this. I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit, Peter. Think of an emergency management scenario where you have multiple entities that are responding and whether it's a weather incident or something else. And so it's not just NIPA, it's state police and on and on and on. And so when Peter speaks into that emergency response and he's directing traffic, it's chaotic, as you can imagine, in an emergency response. And so knowing where his assets are, what they're qualified to do, and the status of their availability to be able to be flown for a type of mission, and is the right payload there associated with that drone. The camera may be somewhere else, and on and on and on. And so that's another use case that when the time comes, I think really helps Peter do his job more effectively and maybe even safer.
Great. And we're talking about kind of the difficulties of managing, missions on an everyday basis, but also managing kind of the administrative aspects of charging things back and so forth. And I think that when programs are I get a ton of emails from people who want to start a program. They want to kind of look into what does it take to start a program. I think that's something that all three of you have some insight in that I wanted to make sure we address today is kind of what are the hurdles to just getting started. Peter, you have this idea. This is going to be a great way to be more efficient and to have safer operations. But how do you convince people, okay, now we need to train people on drones, we need to buy hardware, we need to buy software, we need to make this happen?
The safety it's a big one. The reason to get people to do it, if the safety isn't the biggest megaphone you have, when you start buying one and you show the benefits of one, the great thing about drones is I can hand 15 drones out to 15 different individuals in the same department. A month later, come back, they'll all have 15 great ideas on how to use them because everyone thinks different. The one thing I've really focused in on was not focusing in on NERC and FERC requirements because those are high inspection. You need to have some skill. I just said, can you see if there's a downline? Can you see, is there a danger tree? Can you look for obstructed roadways? Our foresters take ATVs. Some of our towers are in hard to reach areas. They fly the drone in flooded, snowed out areas to see if they can even go down there before they get stuck. Small wins in efficiency pay for themselves. When cell phones were first issued out, a lot of people said, no, they can track me. No, why do I need a camera on my phone? And now we can't go without them. We are at the birthplace of this. Training people to fly, anyone can fly a Skydio. Anyone can fly a Skydio, really nice and easy. The automated features, you tell it where to go and you monitor it doing its job. That autonomy that's there is why the industry is growing rapidly over the past few years. And it's on this trajectory because that autonomy is going. No one wants to hire drone pilots. Drone pilots are just making sure the system works correctly. That's all we're meant to do. The data capturing device, the drone, is everything. Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Absolutely. And Corey, what do you see as some of the hardware, from the hardware side, what are some of the hurdles that people run into when they're trying to start a program?
I think it goes back to that whole training piece, and the people believe that either they need an expert pilot. I need an ATP pilot to operate my drone. That's the way it was back in the pre 107 chapter 333 days, and that's not the case with the Skydio equipment. It takes about 4 hours to get someone proficient enough to operate our aircraft, and they can get really close and get really good data that way. So I think the training issue is probably the premier way that Skydio can help with some of the barriers to developing a program.
And Brent, do you have kind of insight on, you talk to people, you're out there sort of getting to know people who want to start a program. What are some of the things they need to do to overcome those initial hurdles?
We're probably on the enterprise level, Miriam, in that the customers that we cater to for this particular software, Mission Manager, already have the availability to resources to like drones and pilots, but they just want to know, how can I maximize the use of those in their enterprise and move away from spreadsheet management to be able to really connect the dots, allow them to get out there and fly more efficiently, but also maybe safer and with more scale coming down the road to fly more complex missions. And that's something I want to tease out a little bit more, is scalability, if we have time to do that.
Okay, yeah, because of course, once you've gotten the initial program started, then there's that point when you go from 5 drones to 50 drones, and that's a whole different deal. So I want to make sure that we have time to at least touch on a really big one, which is regulations, right? I mean, so regulations. We're in the drone industry. Wouldn't be a drone webinar if we didn't talk about that. So I'm going to start with Corey, because Corey, BVLOS waiver with no visual observers. Yes.
That's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Yeah.
So this is a very big deal. So tell us a little bit about that. This is, because I write these headlines and we've started seeing now, I'm like, BVLOS waiver, BVLOS waiver, BVLOS waiver. Now I get excited when it says no VOs.
Right. Yeah. So, so Skydio's dock solution, the ability for the drone to be connected to the network and be able to be operated independently and autonomously, can only be truly realized, that the value of it can only be truly realized with a true BVLOS, no person on site type operation. The FAA was really happy with the safety case that Skydio was able to make on behalf of NIPA, in that where the drone, it's called close proximity, low altitude, but basically the drone would stay very close to other obstacles, and that vision positioning system and the autonomy that we have on board allows that to happen. And with the drone close to those obstacles, they determined that the risks, air risk and ground risk, was mitigated to a level that would allow the operation of those aircraft in a no operator on site, non-VO, waiver. So super exciting. It's just like the first of its kind. And since 2015, when I started working with drones in the utility industry, having a drone that lived in the asset or on the asset or near the asset was something that everyone wanted. And, they wanted to do that back then. And it's cool to see it happening now with a, fully NDAA compliant aircraft out there capturing that data, landing in the dock, and then uploading it for all the different use cases with security patrol, the post-event inspections, and then the inspections pre and post switching. There's a lot of autonomous switching or SCADA switching, remote switching that happens out on the system. And to ensure that the switch is operated properly, you could launch the drone to fly an automated mission, and then it sends you the data, and you can inspect the switch without having to send someone there. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. So congratulations on that to all of you, because that's kind of moving things forward for all of us here. So, Brent, I know that in conversation with you, we've talked about kind of how the software can help sort of make the safety case just by having all of that data. So tell me, for the benefit, talk a little bit about that, about how using one piece of software to track everything can help you actually make a safety case for the FAA.
Yeah, thanks, Miriam. So I think to build on the great waiver that's been achieved by NIPA and Skydio, and take that even beyond the proximity, low altitude, and in other use cases where you would not be in that environment, there's a couple different stakeholders and players that need to build a safety case that then would be approved by the regulator. And I think part of what we do is we're a slice of that safety case. And there's a couple different areas that we can help in making that risk mitigation so that you can fly that more complex mission. So imagine if NIPA had to fly a remote monitoring mission around an asset that was in airspace potentially shared by other users of that same airspace. You would have to prove to the FAA why and how you would be able to fly that drone, Skydio or otherwise, in that airspace without bumping into something called the non-cooperative target, or they're not emitting their position electronically through some kind of means. So you have to be able to use other technologies, other processes and procedures to prove to the FAA that you can fly that mission safely and not cause any damage or harm. And so Anra is able to help with that. We look at the airspace and we want to more tightly couple what we do on the airspace side of our business with the mission management side of the business, so that we bring both the best worlds into the workspace environment for NIPA, wherever that might be, and start to chip away at the threats that are encountered, whether it's an air risk or a ground risk. And by using other people's data, whether it's a surveillance technology like ADS-B or radar or some kind of RF acoustic system to sense other drones, and on and on and on, be able to demonstrate to the regulator that with all these different pieces of the puzzle combined, Skydio's asset, NIPA's a really nice SMS process, training processes, and Anra's technology, and maybe other technologies, here's how we can address this problem. So I think to go scale, to be able to go even further and do more with these assets and get even a greater return on investment, I think that's the next step for all enterprises. And so this waiver that was just achieved is excellent. I think the FAA's mind and willingness to work to continue to build on these and demonstrate with technology that we'll be able to get there someday to scale is really exciting for us. So we look forward to these opportunities to prove the ability to help mitigate that threat.
And Peter, how do you think that NIPA is? How do you plan on kind of making use of that waiver? What's the operational mission look like in the context of NIPA?
Imagine a switchyard or a substation when a temperature sensor goes off. That alarm that goes off is a JSON file with the lat and long of that actual sensor itself. Before sending someone into that environment in unknown hazards, the drone can go and take a quick peek at it. Maybe one step further would be a security application. This past summer, with what's going on, we start seeing sensors dying, the fence, smart fence if you have it, or ground sensors or something start going off. The drone can go take off and put eyes on the assets themselves. Oh, it's just inclement weather. Oh, it's someone doing something bad. Oh, it's an oil leak. Risk the machine, not the person. Having it be the first on site, and then giving our engineers or giving the security better understanding of the situation is a win by itself. Being able to say exactly where the problem is a bigger win.
And I would guess that much like, every time a fire alarm goes off, there are probably opportunities when you don't have to send a person. So that's just, big savings in resources.
Imagine a point in time when firemen, when they respond to a fire, the first time they actually see this fire is when their eyes on it itself.
Mm-hmm.
But if one of our systems can go up, have that real-time fire or security incident, and sending it to the responders who are automatically heading to it and seeing it on their smart device. We already do video sharing. We're doing video sharing right now. Why can't we do that with this advanced technology, which we're able to do now between everyone here on stage?
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of a collaboration. And Corey, just to ask you this question, does the waiver involve other ground assets like radar or anything like that?
That's a question more for Peter.
Okay,
ADS-B.
Peter.
Yeah.
ADS-B, ma'am.
Okay.
I need to know where everyone is. I'm not supposed to be pinging, but I'm supposed to be receiving.
Gotcha.
And that's the infrastructure we're putting into place now, trying to do, we haven't activated the waiver yet. I haven't done remote
Right.
operations yet, but
Right.
we're getting ready for it.
But you've gone through the hardest part by
hardest part
far. So yeah.
Ma'am, I think I could say no one thought we were going to get approved. I have filed waivers for a really long time. We've picked out a great use case for this area in upstate New York.
Yep.
Everyone was caught off guard, which is a good thing. I think we were used to saying, when will it happen? I just was surprised it happened to us first.
Well, you've done everyone else in the industry a favor. So again, kudos and thanks for going first, because the first one's always the hardest. So that's great. All right. I want to make sure that we touch on the dock a little bit, because this is kind of a new thing. We're talking about it. So I know I've had the opportunity to see it in action. Of course, probably the four of us are all familiar with it. But Corey, dive in a little bit and explain kind of we're talking about a weather resistant, computerized, constantly monitoring home for hardware, and if you haven't seen it in action, it's really it's a unique and kind of an incredible piece of technology.
It's super exciting. I was working with a dock today with one of our customers, and I made the comment, it never gets old watching that drone return
It's
to
so
the dock
cool.
and get secured and then upload all the data. So yeah, basically the dock is a weather hardened enclosure for a drone that's climate controlled. It can cool the drone in the heat of the summer, so that the LiPo batteries can charge. It can heat the drone or heat the batteries in the cold of winter. It has connectivity built in. It has its own Skydio Link radio system, and it has internet connectivity. The drone lives and charges inside the dock when the drone is needed on a scheduled or on-demand basis. The drone can be initiated on a prearranged flight plan or a manual / autonomous flight plan. So you're using the autonomy on board to make the drone safe and be able to operate it, but you're manually driving the drone around the environment that it is housed in. The dock can be used for internal and external uses. You can use it, inside substations for security inspections. You could nuclear dry cask storage. That's a mandated inspection at a nuclear plant. You can use it for logistics and warehousing, counting the number of poles you've got on your pole pile, that kind of thing. But the drone will basically, during a commissioning process, for instance, in a substation, you could build flight plans for all of the switches that you plan to operate, or switches that were part of a differential scheme. And then when that scheme is operated, or when the scheme operates, or a switch needs to be operated, then you can just click on that switch number in the Skydio cloud platform, and the drone will go and perform that inspection, return, and upload the data. So it's a pretty seamless solution. And this waiver kind of indicates the FAA's acceptance of our safety case, like I talked about before. And kudos to our regulatory services team for helping Peter make that happen and really move the industry forward, to allow that remote dock to be more, the true potential of it to be realized.
Yeah, and as you said, huge improvement in ROI when you don't have to have visual observers and pilots there for every operation. So
sure, yeah.
Okay, we are going to open up the Q&A at this point. Please do use the hop-in facility, bottom right-hand corner of your screen, to ask any questions. We will try to respond to as many as we have time for. But while we're giving people a chance to do that, I want to go around quickly to each of you and kind of say, what's next? Like, what is kind of the next big thing that you see happening in the context of this energy space? So, Peter, start with you. What's next year?
Long endurance missions,
Okay.
that would be a definite game changer for an organization like mine.
Okay.
Other drones, other robotics, boats, cars, rovers, dogs.
Perfect. I know the spot thing is I want a spot thing. I want spot. I get to see spot at every conference. Brent, how about you? What's
But
next year?
well, yeah, Peter's getting me fired up because I love hearing what he's saying, because that's right in our same roadmap sweet spot. Is we've kind of figured out at Anra, we have a fairly wide portfolio of software products. Today, we're only talking about Mission Manager and what's being used with NIPA, but we're really into remote identification. We're into airspace management. We're into correlating different surveillance information, different radars into one correlated target. And there's some other things. And so this is all pointing us to a future where it's long endurance missions, more complex missions, to be able to support and enable those, present that safety case we talked about to the FAA to get those approvals. And with the remote ID role on the horizon, we believe there's going to be an increased awareness and need to be able to support enterprises, whether you're NIPA or the state police or somebody else, and understanding how that will impact them. And then on the sometimes it's called UXS, with the X meaning air, sea, or ground type of robots. And I do think energy companies use more than just drones. Primarily the drone asset, you can see the ROI and reasons why they're being deployed for energy and utility organizations. But there's also, I think, a world out there that's using, in addition to drones, ground rovers and different types of systems, even on the water. And it's not always the utility companies. We did an exercise with the Port of Virginia emergency management and public safety organizations, where we had all three types of systems, air, sea, and ground, on our Mission Manager platform, and being able to stream live video to the incident commander in their mobile command center. And so these all point to a future where whatever we can do to enable the end user, in this case NIPA, utility companies, to be able to go further, faster, and safer and compliantly. We're on we closely work with the FAA on their roadmap for airspace management technologies, and helping understand with the industry and with standards development on how this has all come together to be able to allow interoperability. So these are all in this soup of where we're going to take Anra next. And I'm glad to hear NIPA's thinking similarly.
Yeah, it's actually so cool with the sorry, go ahead, please.
Sorry for interrupting.
Not at all.
One thing when we talk about these multiple platforms is, when we look at our day-to-day work, if I have to open up 15 different tabs to accomplish one task, I get frustrated. But having one place that has everything right there, and I use one software throughout, it's ease of use, meaning more people will buy into it, more people will be willing to use it, and we can change an organization naturally. That's what I'm really geeking out about Enra, is it doesn't have a limitation. That's what's great.
Okay, so we do have a couple of questions from the audience, but first I'm going to make Corey answer my question. What's next year for you guys?
Yes. Yeah, so I think event-based patrols are next. Like Peter talked about, the fire, the dock-based drone responding to a fire and getting there faster than the fireman can. I think the ability for drones to respond to a distribution automation queue. So when you have an outage in the field, we've gotten really good at switching around that outage and getting everything back on that we can in an automated fashion, but there's still customers out. So having the ability to patrol that line before the crews get there, could result in being able to re-energize that line prior without having to do anything. It could have been a momentary outage. So I think that's probably the next big thing.
Fantastic. It's very exciting. I have a home in a rural area in New Hampshire. We lose power for long time periods. So
yeah.
Very exciting. Okay. One of the questions that has come in from the audience directed to Peter. How do you see the Skydio dock in connection with long range missions?
Multi-rotors are great. There's a reason why the Air Force has a 15, 16, A-10, F-22, F-35, U-2 spy plane. Every aircraft has its own point in time. We fly in an energized switchyard doing the inspection with their aircraft now. Long endurance flight, multirotors are not meant to fly 15 miles down the road and then land. Multirotor is meant to go up, get your eyes on target, maybe a mile, and then come home, land, and you're done. Long endurance is Niagara Falls to Montreal. That's long endurance, over 200 miles. So those are two different data sets.
Mm-hmm.
Having their system at every substation switchyard for the easy to use inspection, great. Long endurance flight would probably be an airplane taking some high resolution pictures, maybe a medium format, 150 megapixel camera from 250 feet above. You would see everything you would have on that tower for an assessment. That's how I would see it. They're meant for one mission, the ease of use, quick action. Long endurance flights are complicated and not legal yet.
Okay. Another question that has come in from the audience, can you speak to the measurable impacts and efficiencies drones have had on the program? If someone wanted to start a drone program like yours, how could they convince executive leadership using measurable improvements kind of other companies are seeing?
I'll take that one, I guess. We're looking at roughly becoming more efficient. When our line guys climb it normally, they need fall prevention, harness, the whole nine, and it's labor intensive to do a first look. When we go out on the line and we fly a drone, it's less than 15 minutes to take a quick picture. If I turn on 3D scan for our goat heads, a 2-circuit system, total of 6 insulators, we're looking at 5,500 photos in 45 minutes, so 1 battery swap. And I mean, you get every angle of the insulator looking straight up. So doing a quick inspection, I can do a tower in about 5 minutes. Doing a comprehensive 45 minutes. That efficiency alone with the data that you're providing is high. It's only a 12 megapixel camera right now. But when you're close to that insulator, and that 12 megapixel is so close, it is gorgeous. I wish my background worked because I actually use one of their drones to take these gorgeous DJI-like shots, because it all matters on how to use the sensor.
Right. Okay, thank you. So I think for all of you, we have another question that has been upvoted quite a bit here, which is how many other states are using this program for their power systems? I think by this program, they probably mean, drone programs in general. I don't know. Anybody speak to that?
I would say, like in your larger utilities, your investor-owned utilities, your NYPAs of the world, they're going to have drone programs. I'd say probably all of them. I think I am seeing more adoption by the smaller co-ops and REAs across the country. But I would say that the drone usage and having a drone program and maintaining a drone program with your utility company If you don't have one now, you will in the future, and it's just going to be as part of the business as a bucket truck or climbing tools. I really think that's the case.
Okay. Here's one that I actually field a lot of emails about this, so I'm going to direct this to Peter. I'm an independent contractor drone pilot with a Skydio kit. Have inspected for other energy providers. Is there work or any room for small independents in the program to inspect yards, transmission towers, etc. for NIPA?
This is a touchy point. The one thing I'm pride myself on is keeping our pilots internal to our employees.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy lift like spraying drones or LiDAR systems, those are specialized systems that we will farm out. But doing an inspection where our union guys, our managers that do it now should keep that job.
Right.
And that's been something I've been striving for, is to keep it an in-house program, because then you can react to the industry. I can help companies out with insight, and our people always have work.
And let me put this a different way. If somebody was applying for a job at NIPA and they said, I am already an experienced drone pilot, would that be an advantage?
It would. I would
Okay.
think so.
All right.
Miriam, just to build on that a little bit, though, one of our customers is using the same platform as NIPA, is New York Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Mm-hmm.
And they have vendors that come in that support MTA projects in New York City and the surrounding area that are building things, and they have their own drone system. And so I completely understand and appreciate Peter's comment, but there are opportunities for the industry, for that gentleman or person, that lady that asked that question, to be able to engage in a way that is outside of NIPA, that allows them to further their own business, whatever that might be. And so there's the idea here is to be adaptable. And so we recognize that. And so the platform we create, I'm sure Skydio wants a lot of people flying their drones, no matter who they are, for their businesses. And similarly, we want a lot of different people using our software.
Great.
Yeah, and I think during like storm restoration, when it's all hands on deck and you need more hands, that was kind of in my former role where we found the use of contractors valuable, kind of plussing up for those types of, or a very large inspection project that happens, on a odd cadence.
Okay. I'm going to another question. Sorry, they're coming in fast. How much of a learning curve is there for inspectors using a Skydio for the first time? And Peter, you mentioned a gentleman in his 70s going right for it, no problem. What is your experience giving sort of people who have not flown a drone before the Skydio and saying, okay, this is what we need to do?
As an experienced pilot, when the drone starts to alter and avoid what it's going to hit, as an experienced pilot, I find terrifying. As my beginner pilots they don't realize it. It is an amazing aircraft. Not everyone flies 50cc balsa wood airplanes, okay? That is not scalable. Scalable is bringing anybody in and within hours having them fly it. And if you're flying their system, you are using the engineering softwares with it. We are doing it for work. We're not flying for fun. So you're flying with a purpose. And you basically make sure, hey, it can go up to 6 feet, 2 meters, 6 feet up, and then it performs the inspection. You're not actually flying it, okay? You are flying it, you're holding the sticks, you are flying it, but really the drone's flying itself. It's easy. I promise you all, it's easy. It's great.
Okay.
I usually, when we're doing when I'm showing Skydio to a new customer for the first time, I usually like to just I launch the drone and hand it to them, and they don't realize they're flying. We're just talking, and they're out there flying around and avoiding obstacles. It's pretty cool.
That's great. All right, this is all we have time for. I'll just going to touch on two quick ones. One is, can I get a mission manager demo? I suggest Anra.com. Brent, maybe you have another website or point of contact there. I'm sure you can get a mission manager demo.
Yes, call me.
Call. Okay. And then I am going to say thank you so much to all of our panelists. We appreciate you all being here, and to all of you joining us. Thank you so much for being with us. And one of the questions that we got is, what is the future of UTM? Hope you will join again for the next Anra Huddle, when future of UAM is going to be the topic there. Hopefully, UAM, UTM, we're going to bring those in. So we didn't have time for that one this time, but please join again for the next Anra Huddle. Thank everybody for being here, and thank you, gentlemen, for your contributions.
Thanks, Marion. Great job.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.